Good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. This is BRN AM for Thursday, December 14th, 2023. At our top story today, many parents are unaware when their kids fall behind at the grade level. And joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Bibb Hubbard is the president and founder of Learning Heroes. Bibb, it's great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program this morning.
So happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
And I was joking with you offline or in the green room, the virtual green room. I was thinking about bringing my report cards, from elementary and junior and high school, but then I rethought about that. I thought about some of the grades. So I didn't bring them here, but what I want to dive into is how important is the report card? Because I remember bringing that report card to my folks. They had to sign it. It had all the details about how Jeffrey was doing or what he needed to improve upon, and there was quite a bit. But how important is that report card in today's learning environment?
The report card is critically important. So I don't want to take away from all of the components that make up a report card. So it measures, your effort, your ability to show up in class, to ask good questions, to be a good peer, to problem solve, to even, turn your assignments in with your name on it. I don't know, my younger son had a difficult time remembering to put his name on his piece of paper and getting credit for it. So it is a reflection of a lot of really important measures. But what is the challenge is that we see equate that grade to grade level mastery. And so imagine you have a fourth grader who's getting an A or a B in reading, and 80% of parents basically say that their children get all B's or above. And that is our Gallup Learning Heroes poll data from just a few weeks ago. But to a parent, that means that fourth grader is reading at a fourth grade level because clearly they're getting an A or a B. But that's not what that means. That fourth grader could be reading at a second grade level, but doing really well at the second grade level that they're at. So they're turning in their assignments again. The quizzes they're taking based on that second grade level, they're doing well. They're mastering that, but it's not fourth grade level reading. And so that's the communications breakdown. Teachers are not communicating to families where that child is. And so our call to action for parents in particular is just ask your teacher, first and foremost, is my child reading on their grade level? And if not, let's make a plan to do something about that. So to not throw away the B, but we need to unpack the B and let parents know that there's more to a grade than grade level mastery. And often the report card masks what's really happening in terms of that grade level mastery.
I seem to recall back when I was a student, there were parent-teacher conferences where my parents would come in and learn some of the things that maybe I didn't want them to learn, but also about me and some of my behaviors. But also that was a time when they could hear some of that feedback. Jeffrey needs to improve on his reading. He needs to do more vocabulary. Does that still take place in today's learning environment? I'm so far removed. I don't have children. I have nieces and nephews who are in school, but I'm so far removed from that process. Does that take place today? And is that a good place to have the conversation you're discussing?
It is a great place, and they are still happening. So actually, and again, in our recent poll with Gallup, 86% of parents said that they're attending their parent-teacher conferences, which is a dramatic increase in participation based on our previous data. So we've been conducting annual national surveys of families since 2016. And just a few years ago, it was about 50% of parents who said that they were taking advantage of the parent-teacher conferences. So we saw a really wonderful increase in that level of participation. But there are a couple of challenges baked into that setting that need to be confronted. So one, they're typically really short, right? So you're trying to squeeze a lot of information into a very short period of time. And imagine you're a Spanish-speaking family or a family who speaks another language. You have to wait for a translator to join that conversation. So in many cases, families are waiting 2 to 3 hours to get their turn to be able to spend the 10 to 15 minutes with that teacher and that translator. Not super practical. So a lot of families don't have access to even that communication because it's too hard to make it happen. And we also know that because it's such a short period of time, and teachers, there isn't an expectation that teachers need to tell families necessarily that their child, at what grade level their child is performing on. So a lot of time what happens is teachers focus on a lot of these other important pieces. Yep, they're asking good questions, they are a good friend. And again, these are important, but parents deserve to know and should know where their child is in terms of their grade level mastery. But a lot of times teachers are not expected to share that information with families. They're not trained to share that information with families. And because of the time constraints, don't often have time to share that with families. So again, we're asking parents to ask the question, put that at the top of the list, and we're asking school leaders and district leaders to give teachers the time, the training, the tools, the ongoing communication strategies so that it's not just a one and done parent teacher conference. And that's like the only way that teachers and parents can team up. There needs to be more consistency, more predictability in those communications.
Yeah, and especially you think about today's technology, there's Zoom and Teams and all these other ways to interact. You can email. Those things really didn't, when I was a kid, they didn't exist. You actually had to pick up the phone or you had to go in front of the teacher or make an appointment. There's so much technology today, Bibb, that really should help foster this type of engagement.
So, and there've been big strides. So there are companies, organizations, nonprofits, and for-profits like Remind, Talking Points. There's several ways that are texting platforms where teachers can put in a text to families, and then it gets translated into the language, the family's language. So there are lots of really cool ways that's starting to happen. AI can help out a lot as well. But you can't replace that relationship. So, first and foremost, we're all humans, we're all relational. So at the beginning of the year, we found the schools that do this really well, they prioritize that relationship. So getting to know the teacher, getting to know the family, getting to know the child, and what's happening in that home environment is so critical. So again, at the very beginning of the year, we have a website called bealearninghero.org with free tools in English and Spanish for families to access to be able to help navigate schools on behalf of their children. One of the tools we have is a Dear Teacher letter. So if you think about Mad Libs, right? Remember Mad Libs?
Yeah, I love
back in the
Mad Libs.
day?
That was so much
Love
fun.
Mad Libs, exactly. So it's like a Mad Libs letter where you can just fill in the blank. So dear, whatever teacher your teacher's name is, this is what we love to do. This is how we spend our free time. This is where my family comes from. This is what my child loves to do. This is really what my child hates to do. This is where they struggle. So the teacher is getting a picture of who that child is and where they come from so that the teacher can better meet the needs in the classroom. And many teachers are good about, sharing their own personal history and stories with families, but making those phone calls at the beginning of the year. So the first time a family's hearing from the teacher isn't bad news.
Yeah.
It's good news, and it's an introduction, it's a relationship. And the schools that do that well, they see incredible outcomes for students and for teachers and for schools overall.
Yeah. Well, Bibb, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about importance of grades and relating to the teacher. You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms? Especially for the smaller businesses. I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network. Welcome back. We're joined this morning by Bibb Hubbard of Learning Heroes. Bibb, thanks so much for staying with us. Really appreciate you hanging around for segment number 2 this morning.
I'm super happy to be here and to continue to dive in. Let's go.
Yeah, this is fun and taking me back to really fun times. And this is so important. I think about my nieces and nephews and how important education is and going to be for the future. I want to take a step back because when I was a student, or just think about these teachers, a lot of them have 25, 30 children in a class. And oftentimes they're teaching in the class by themselves. They may not have an assistant. Does that volume of people being responsible for 25, 30 children, their children, does that create the challenges that we're talking about this morning?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, time is one thing you can't change, right? You can't expand time, you can't add time. Like that is actually a zero-sum game, if you will. So absolutely, that's a reality, for teachers. But there are ways around that. So we know as it relates to building, trusting relationships with families, again, schools that do this practice really well, they don't put the full responsibility on one teacher or like one family liaison. It's the whole school that is a community and embraces families and sees them as the assets and the allies that they are, so that the teacher, may be responsible, it has an expectation to reach 5 families a week. So it's not they have to talk to 30 families every single week, but just, track those 5 families a week. And then by the end of the month, you'll have a pretty good sense of what's going on in children's homes. And what's happening at home, impacts what's happening at school and vice versa. So, and again, we do this research with families where we'll talk to the parent and we'll talk to the child together, and then the child leaves and the parent stays, and then the parent stays and the child leaves, and the disconnects are so dramatic. I mean, a child at school is very different than a child at home, and the child wants to protect their parent, right? Well, and themselves. So, when we ask a parent, what lights your child up? What do they love to do? And the parent will say, oh my gosh, they are such avid readers. They love reading. And then the child comes in like, I hate reading. I really want to be a scientist. And you're like, wait, are these the same people? But that's just the reality. And then when you ask, children like, well, why don't you tell your parents the full story? They're like, well, I don't want to disappoint them. I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to lose privileges. So they are good at masking what's happening in the classroom. And so again, it's that parent-teacher connection is vital to make sure that families are supporting their children the best way they can when they're at home. And then teachers have an understanding of what's happening at home so they can be responsive to the child's needs in that classroom setting. So technology can definitely play a role, and the strategies, the policies, the practices that are happening in that whole school building also make quite a difference. And making sure the teachers have that training to talk to families is really important, and supporting teachers in that, because it's it's really hard to build relationships. It's not easy. And again, last I'll say is we've conducted a lot of research among teachers and asked, why are you not having these direct conversations about grade level achievement with families? And many teachers say it's fear-based. I'm afraid I'm not going to be believed. I'm afraid I'm going to be blamed. And many say, I am afraid my principal's not going to have my back. So it's complex, but it's also quite solvable, right?
Yeah,
So
and
it is something we can do.
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to ask you last question about the curricula to become a teacher. My mother was a teacher. She went through educate. I mean, this is, my mom's retired. Went on to some other things, but she was a teacher early on in her career. There's a robust and rigorous process to become a teacher. Does that include the relational components that we're discussing this morning? I mean, it sounds like it doesn't exist for these teachers, and
It's crazy.
but it's strange to me because teaching is relational. Because I have to show you I'm the adult, I'm the experienced one, and I'm going to take you from the unlearned to the learned. So you would think that involves a relationship with the child and the children in the room.
Well, so it's very so the pedagogy today and the training for teachers is really classroom and school based. So it is about instructional practice, it's about instructional pedagogy, but there is, I mean, we've done a scan of this. There is a dearth, very limited professional development or training for teachers to engage families. And in fact, when we asked, so that's a huge opportunity, and there are organizations who are tackling that and creating curriculum for teachers in training so that they feel comfortable and have the skills, because it's a skill to be able to engage with families from different cultures, different languages. This is hard work, and it does take time. And so principals need to give teachers the time. So like how the school day is structured needs to be in place, the policies, the supports. But it is being, there are schools that are doing this type of work, so it can be done. But it is shocking that many of these schools of education don't have one course on engaging families. I mean, it's kind of bananas. So like, it seems like low hanging fruit. Speaking of
Yeah,
bananas, why can't we do that?
I don't know. It just seems very simple to me, and it's something that when you look at our academic record recently, just from what I've read in the popular press, we haven't been doing well as we should compared to maybe some of our peers internationally. This seems like, I just believe that, I personally believe, and again, I don't have your background, but if you can engage with people and bring them into your world a little bit and share, they'll have more empathy and maybe a little bit more buy-in. And I think, from my perspective, I think that really is needed here to really improve. This is our future generation. These are the people that are going to be leading our country, developing vaccines and other amazing technological developments that help us. So it just seems like that would be an easy place to start. Well, Bibb, we're going to have to leave it there. Great to talk to you, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Really appreciate the time and the conversation. Thank you so much.
And that wraps up this episode of BRNAM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to, drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news in lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more in all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to search our archives, check out our latest content? Then visit our website. We're back again tomorrow with another edition of BRNAM. We'll have a very special guest. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes. Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network. Available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.